It was the first time I'd worked with miniatures on that scale, if you will, just the quantity of models. They built a lot of models for Hudsucker Proxy, and those models I think still exist today. They were built for Hudsucker and then purchased by Universal, I think, and then leased back for the Shadow. And we built some, I think, one or two new buildings, but they had basically built most of downtown Manhattan for the Coen Brothers film. So whenever we use these things, and we used these buildings after that for Gotham City in the next two Batman movies, when I was working for Mike Joyce on Batman Forever, and then on Batman and Robin when I was working for, when Ian supervised that. It was the same buildings that, oh yeah, we're getting them back. Okay, perfect, because we know how everything works on them. So we refurbished them on the Shadow, and they got refurbished on every show. One of the coolest things on the Shadow was they came to us with like 1 day notice. We were doing a shot of New York. They wanted to do a reveal around like a close-up on a gargoyle. And I think they had planned on doing it using some of the 24 scale models that we had, and they just weren't going to hold up that close. So they said, all right, we want to build like an A-scale version of a gargoyle and a wall section, and we've got a day. So they basically threw 10 of us at it, and Dana Jurisic did this gargoyle jaguar looking sculpture. It was beautiful, about yay big, out of foam. Brian Marn and myself did a bunch of more structural pieces. Who else was in on that? Scotty Schneider. But we had like a day to knock this thing out, and it worked. All the foam had to be spackled and sanded and put in place and then painted. Renee Rabash was a painter on that. She's just such a talented lady, and knocked that out. And it looked great, man. It looked up close. It really sold it. What was cool about the Shadow, it was one of the first shows that I worked on where instead of optical printing the effects passes, they shot it all in camera. Meaning, we'd do the Moco shot for the beauty pass, back on the film, do the Moco shot of the smoke pass, did the Moco shot with the rain. So they had misters to get really high pressure, so you get little tiny miniature droplets of water, and shot that as a separate element. Well, as a separate pass, but back around the film each time. And then when you're done, you develop the film, your shot's done. And that's something that I don't think too many filmmakers today could wrap their heads around. There's a scene in The Shadow where he was like, okay, we need a miniature compressor, air compressor, because a cop puts a note for the Shadow into like the pneumatic tube and closes it and fires it off. And so there's this whole sequence where the camera like follows this along through the tube and then actually goes into the tube, and it's like a kind of a roller coaster ride. They put an IMO in a crash box, and Brian Marn and I built this twisty tube kind of roller coaster thing where you put the camera in here and they let it go, and it went and came out over here 100 feet away. The camera goes through the wall basically into the next room where you see this compressor. So the compressor was found objects. I had a Hudson sprayer can, a cup. The wheels are like from a lawnmower. Compressor motor sections were Coke cans, and I think I used a couple of paper cups. I used a paper cup for something up there as well, but then just near-kneed it up, and just painted the front side. Because that was also part of the deal. If you're using found objects, you just paint half of it, and you leave the back side where the camera doesn't see it, so that whoever's there can be in on the joke. Camera doesn't get to see it, nobody else knows, but it's our little gag. Yeah, those were the funnest. I mean, anything that you could make out of just found objects that would work in the shot, particularly, if you could put Coke cans in there. Since it was set in the 40s, there were a lot of water towers on top of the buildings, so most of them, were nice looking models. of water towers, but you know, you might put together a tower, a bunch of water tanks, like a tank farm up there out of Coke cans, and you know, paint it up, and camera's not going to know, and nobody's going to know, and put a little end cap over it. You know, just you'd make one end cap and then mold a bunch of them and then glue them on so you couldn't see that it is a Coke can. That was a great working environment. It was a great experience working over with Mark and those guys.